Welcome, kindred spirits to conscious frequency. Settle in, breathe deep. Tonight we embark on a gentle exploration, a whispered journey through the tapestry of existence, woven with the threads of time and transformation. Tonight, we delve into the profound, slow dance of patient evolution. We'll trace the silent footsteps of change, from the very first stirrings of life to the complex beings we are today. This isn't a tale of sudden leaps, but of enduring patience, of countless tiny adjustments, each one a whisper in the grand symphony of becoming. We will explore how life, with an almost ethereal grace, has patiently sculpted itself, adapting, learning, and blooming across eons. Prepare to be lulled by the quiet wisdom of ages. As we begin, I invite you to find your most comfortable space. Perhaps you're nestled in your favorite armchair, or sinking into the soft embrace of your bed. Wherever you are, feel the ground beneath you, the air around you. And if you feel so inclined, perhaps share in the comments below, what brought you here tonight? What quiet curiosity draws you to the slow unfolding of life's grand narrative? If the gentle hum of discovery and the quiet contemplation of nature's wonders resonate with you, consider joining our growing constellation of curious minds. Hit that subscribe button, and perhaps the little bell, so you don't miss these softly spoken journeys into the heart of science and philosophy. It's a simple click, but it supports this space of shared wonder. Our journey tonight will be a long and winding one, spanning vast stretches of time. We'll move through chapters of adaptation, resilience, and the subtle art of survival. Let the words wash over you like a gentle tide. Allow your thoughts to drift, to ponder. This is space for quiet reflection, for allowing the deep currents of understanding to flow. Let us begin. Before there was form, there was potential. Our story begins not with a bang, but with a whisper, a faint tremor in the cosmic dust. Imagine our young Earth, not as the vibrant, blue marble we know, but as a fiery, chaotic infant. It was a place of constant bombardment, a celestial toddler flinging rocks and meteors with wild abandon. The surface, a seething, molten sea, simmered under a sky thick with volcanic ash. There was no gentle breeze, no soft rain, just the raw, untamed energy of creation. It was a world painted in shades of molten rock, of crucible of pure chemistry, where the very elements that would one day compose us were being forged in the intense heat and pressure. Life as we understand it was utterly absent, a silent promise yet to be kept. It was a blank canvas waiting for the first hesitant brushstroke, and then, in this violent, primordial soup, something truly remarkable began to stir. Think of it as a quiet alchemy, a subtle dance of molecules. In the deep, dark trenches of the ocean, perhaps near the hydrothermal vents spewing mineral-rich fluids, or maybe in shallow, sun-drenched pools, the building blocks of life started to assemble. Amino acids, the tiny protein-making bricks and nucleotides, the letters of our genetic alphabet, began to form. It wasn't a conscious effort, no guiding hand, just the inevitable consequence of chemistry under specific conditions. These simple molecules, born from inorganic beginnings, were the first hesitant steps towards complexity, the first whispers of organization in the vast, unstructured expanse. But how do you hold a whisper? How do you contain a fleeting thought? The next crucial step was the creation of a boundary, a way to separate the us inside from the outside. Imagine simple fatty molecules, like tiny oil droplets, adrift in this watery world. When they encountered the right conditions, they could spontaneously self-assemble, their water, repelling tails turning inward, their water, loving heads facing outward, forming a delicate, spherical membrane. These protocells, these tiny self-contained bubbles, were like the first private rooms in the Grand Hotel of early Earth. They provided a stable environment, a protected space where the nascent chemistry could unfold, shielded from the harshness of the external world. It was the beginning of individuality, the first hint of a distinct self, and within these fragile enclosures, the real magic began to unfurl. The ultimate trick of life is its ability to copy itself, to pass on its very essence. Scientists believe that RNA, a molecule similar to DNA, might have been the first to achieve this incredible feat. Imagine these RNA molecules as tiny, intricate instruction manuals, capable of not only storing information but also of catalyzing their own replication. They were like self-folding origami, able to create copies of themselves, perpetuating their existence. This wasn't just chemistry anymore, this was the dawn of information transfer. the very spark that ignites the flame of continuity, the ability to learn from the past and whisper it to the future. You see, imagine these early molecules like tiny, self-organizing Lego bricks, clicking together in the vast sandbox of early Earth, waiting for the right sequence to build something truly remarkable. It's a beautiful, almost poetic thought, isn't it? But how did these fragile, self-replicating packets begin to truly live, to interact and compete? What was the next evolutionary whisper? Take a moment to feel the sheer improbability of it all, the quiet miracle of chemistry. With a boundary formed and a blueprint in hand, life needed energy. The first true metabolic engines began to hum. Imagine, if you will, a world utterly devoid of the sunlight we know. A primordial soup, perhaps, or the inky blackness of the deep ocean floor. Here, where light's gentle touch couldn't reach, life found another way to stir. It was a time of chemosynthesis, a quiet alchemy of the earth itself. Think of it like this: these early, almost impossibly simple life forms, these pioneers of existence, discovered they could sip energy directly from the very chemicals that bubbled up from the planet's core. Around hydrothermal vents, those steaming fissures on the ocean floor, where minerals and gases met the vast, cool water, there was a subtle, invisible dance. Life learned to tap into the potential energy stored within these chemical bonds, like a thirsty traveler finding a hidden spring. It wasn't a grand explosion of power, but a slow, steady draw, a whisper of energy coaxed from the raw materials of a young world. They were like tiny, self-sufficient furnaces, burning with a slow internal glow, fueled by the very essence of the planet. But to truly coax life's processes along, to make them happen with any sort of speed, something more was needed. A nudge, a gentle push. And that's where the first enzymes entered the stage. These were the original molecular helpers, the very first tiny gears in the grand machinery of life. Think of a complex recipe, full of delicate steps. Without a skilled chef, it might take days to prepare. But with the right tools, the rightest catalysts, those steps become swift and sure. Enzymes are like that chef's tools, but on a microscopic scale. Their protein molecules, folded into exquisite shapes, perfectly designed to grab onto specific molecules and help them transform. They speed up reactions, making the slow, deliberate processes of early life suddenly more efficient. They were the first sparks of order, turning chaos into controlled chemical conversations, allowing life to build itself, to replicate, to simply be more effectively. Then, a new dawn began to break, not with the sun as we know it, but with a subtler, more ancient light. This was the era of anoxygenic photosynthesis. Imagine bacteria, tiny specks of life, realizing they could look upwards, not to the sun for warmth, but for a different kind of sustenance, via light energy. But this wasn't the oxygen-releasing photosynthesis we're so familiar with. This was a more primitive, a more guarded form. These early photosynthetic organisms used pigments like tiny, specialized solar panels to capture photons, those packets of light. They used this captured energy to build their own food, to convert simple molecules into the building blocks of life. But crucially, they didn't release oxygen as a byproduct. They were like quiet gardeners, tending their own little patches of light, without changing the air around them. It was a revolutionary step, a way to harness the abundant energy of starlight, a gentle opening of the door to a brighter future. And as these early metabolic engines churned, as they converted chemical potential and light into life itself, there were, of course, waste products. Everything that takes energy, that transforms matter, leaves a trace. These early byproducts were simple, often dissolved in the watery environments where life first took hold. Perhaps they were just slightly altered mineral compounds, or simple organic molecules that didn't quite fit into the life-building process. But even these humble leftovers were significant. They were the first subtle hints of a future where life's activities would begin to reshape the very planet. These tiny chemical signatures, unseen and unremarked upon by the organisms themselves, were the first whispers of change in a world that was about to be profoundly transformed by the very act of living. Think of these early metabolic pathways like the first sputtering engines, inefficient perhaps, but capable of driving the nascent machinery of life forward, converting raw chemical potential into purposeful activity. These early metabolisms were powerful, but they were confined to the microscopic. What happened when life began to organize into larger, more complex structures? Consider the vastness of time required for these fundamental energy harnessing systems to evolve. Then came a silent revolution, a gas that would reshape the planet and all its inhabitants: oxygen. It wasn't a sudden explosion, more like a slow, persistent seep, a whisper that grew into a roar. Imagine our early Earth, a world bathed in a quiet, almost sleepy atmosphere, where life, in its earliest forms, clung to the shadows, thriving in the absence of this new, potent element. But deep within the ancient oceans, something extraordinary was stirring. Tiny, unassuming organisms, the ancestors of what we now call cyanobacteria, began to master a new trick, a secret alchemy of sunlight and water. They learned to split water molecules, not just for sustenance, but as a way to power their own quiet existence. And as they did, they released a byproduct, a breath of fresh air, so to speak, into the primordial sea's: oxygen. It was a slow, steady exhalation from billions upon billions of these microscopic life forms, a gradual infusion of a gas that would, in time, paint our skies blue and fill our lungs. Now, this wasn't exactly a welcome party for everyone. For the vast majority of life at that time, the anaerobic life that had known only the gentle hum of a world without free oxygen, this new gas was a deadly poison. Think of it like a sudden, harsh light flooding a creature that had only ever known the deep, comforting dark. It was overwhelming, corrosive, and utterly toxic. This period, known as the Great Oxygenation Event, was, in many ways, a planetary crisis. Mass extinctions swept through the ancient seas, a silent, slow poisoning that wiped out countless species, entire lineages of life that couldn't adapt, couldn't find a way to shield themselves from this aggressive new element. It was a profound environmental shift, a violent, yet subtle, purging of the old order. But even as it wreaked havoc, oxygen was also busy with another, equally fundamental task. The early oceans were rich with dissolved iron, a metallic soup that had been accumulating for eons. As oxygen began to bubble up, it reacted with this iron, pulling it out of the water and causing it to precipitate, to settle down like a fine, rusty dust. This process, over millions of years, created vast, layered deposits of iron-rich rock, the banded iron formations we find in the Earth's crust today. They are, in essence, the fossilized breath of ancient bacteria, a geological record etched in stone, telling the story of an ocean slowly being cleansed, transformed, and prepared for a new kind of life. And for those few organisms that could tolerate, or even better, utilize this new oxygen, a remarkable advantage emerged. They discovered that oxygen could be used as a far more efficient fuel, a way to unlock vastly more energy from their food than ever before. This was the dawn of cellular respiration, a more complex, more powerful way of living. Imagine it as discovering a much faster, much more potent engine. Life that could harness this power suddenly had a significant evolutionary leg up. They could grow faster, move more, and, most importantly, they could begin to build more complex structures, paving the way for the intricate tapestry of life that we know today. Imagine oxygen as a potent new spice entering the planetary kitchen. For some, it was overwhelming and toxic, a flavor too strong to bear, leading to a swift and final exit from the menu. For others, though, it unlocked entirely new, richer flavors of existence, a complex and invigorating taste that transformed their very being. This oxygen-rich world, this planet now breathing a different kind of air, paved the way for something truly extraordinary: the coming together of cells. From single strands of life, something remarkable happened. They began to join hands, to cooperate, to become more than the sum of their parts. It's a story, really, of finding the right companion, of weaving two separate existences into a single, more vibrant tapestry. Imagine, if you will, the earliest days of life, a world teeming with single-celled beings, each a tiny, self-contained universe. They were masters of their own small domains, but there was a limit to what any one of them could achieve alone. Then, a whisper of change began, a subtle shift in the currents of existence. This is where we meet the concept of endosymbiosis. It's a rather grand term, isn't it? But at its heart, it's a simple, profound idea. One cell, a tiny explorer in the ancient seas, perhaps a little bit lost or seeking refuge, happened upon another. Instead of being a meal or a threat, this second cell was welcomed in. It wasn't digested, it was embraced. And within the protective walls of the host cell, this newcomer found a new home, a safe harbor. In return, it offered something invaluable. This wasn't a conquest, you see, but as mutualistic embrace, a partnership forged in the deep past that would redefine the very architecture of life. And what did these early partners bring to the table? Well, one of the most crucial gifts came in the form of his mitochondria. Picture an ancient bacterium, one that had mastered the art of breathing in oxygen, of extracting energy with an efficiency that was, frankly, revolutionary for its time. This little aerobic marvel, this powerhouse in miniature, found itself engulfed by a larger, perhaps less energetic, ancestral cell. Instead of being consumed, it settled within, becoming the very engine of this new, combined entity. It was like finding a perfectly tuned generator for a home that previously relied on flickering candles. These mitochondria, these tiny energy factories, are still with us today, humming away in nearly every cell of our bodies, a constant reminder of that ancient, life-giving symbiosis. But the story doesn't end there, oh no. Another incredible partnership, another act of cellular diplomacy, led to the chloroplasts. Imagine a different kind of ancient bacterium, this one a master of sunlight, a photosynthetic wizard. It learned to capture the golden rays of the sun and transform them into sustenance, a living solar panel. When this cyanobacterium was welcomed into another cell, it brought with it the secret of photosynthesis. This was the dawn of plant and algal life, the creation of organisms that could, quite literally, feed on light. Think of the vast green oceans and the verdant forests that would eventually bloom, all thanks to this ancient act of cellular hospitality, this internal garden cultivated by a captured sun worshipper. The benefits of this cooperation, this symbiotic embrace, were truly transformative. By bringing these specialized partners inside, the host cell gained incredible advantages. It could now harvest energy with far greater efficiency, thanks to the mitochondria, and in the case of plants and algae, harness the power of the sun itself. This increased energy meant greater capacity for growth, for specialization, and for complexity. It was like a single artisan suddenly having access to a whole workshop of specialized tools and skilled assistants. These new eukaryotic cells, with their internal compartments and their integrated partners, were a monumental leap forward. They were the birth of a new kind of life, a more robust, more capable form, laying the foundation for everything that was to come. Picture it like two ancient travelers, weary and alone, finding shelter together in a shared cave. Over time, they learned to rely on each other, one providing warmth, the other food, forging a new, stronger existence. They share their skills, their strengths, and in doing so, they become something entirely new, something more resilient, more capable than either could have ever been on their own. It's a beautiful metaphor for how cooperation can create something truly extraordinary from humble beginnings. These new eukaryotic cells were a breakthrough, but they were still largely solitary. What happened when they began to form vast, interconnected communities? The eukaryotic cell, a marvel of internal cooperation, now looked outward, seeking partners to build something grander still. Imagine, if you will, these tiny, self-contained universes, each with its own bustling metropolis of organelles, its nucleus a quiet library of life's blueprints. For eons they danced their solitary ballots, mastering the art of being one. But something stirred. A subtle whisper, a shared yearning, perhaps, to weave their individual threads into a larger tapestry. This is where we meet the dawn of multicellularity, the first tentative steps from singular existence towards a shared destiny. It wasn't a sudden leap, you see, but more of a gentle gathering, a shy huddling together. Think of early colonial organisms like simple clusters of grapes, where cells, still quite independent, began to find comfort and advantage in proximity. They'd stick together, not yet truly a single entity, but more like a friendly neighborhood where everyone knew everyone. And within these nascent clusters, a quiet revolution began. Cells started to notice that not everyone needed to do everything. Some might find themselves particularly adept at, say, catching the light for energy, while others discovered a knack for sensing the currents to guide the group. A few might even be the designated keepers of the next generation, the hopeful seeds of future gatherings. This was the very first inkling of a specialization, the elegant division of labor that would come to define so much of life's grand design. But how do you get cells, each so fiercely individual, to agree to stick together and play nice? This is where the silent symphony of genetic programming comes into play. Over vast stretches of time, those cells that happen to have genes which encouraged a adhesion, a sticky embrace, found themselves with an advantage. Genes that allowed for subtle communication, little chemical whispers passed between neighbors, also proved invaluable. These weren't conscious decisions, of course, but rather the slow, patient winnowing of nature. Those that could form stable, cooperative groups simply persisted and multiplied more effectively. It's like they evolved a shared language, a silent understanding that said, "Together we are more." And oh, the advantages! Imagine being a single vulnerable cell, adrift in a world of hungry mouths. Now, picture yourself as part of a larger, more robust colony. Suddenly, you're not so easily swallowed. Your size becomes a shield, a deterrent. But it's more than just brute size. With ours division of labor, each cell could hone its particular skill. The cells dedicated to feeding could become incredibly efficient at gathering nourishment, while those focused on movement could propel the entire group with greater purpose. This specialization wasn't just about survival, it was about thriving, about unlocking new potentials for acquiring resources, for navigating challenges, and for simply being more than they could ever be alone. We see the faint echoes of this profound transition in the fossil record, like whispers from the deep past. Think of the ancient stromatolites, those layered, rock-like structures formed by colonies of simple bacteria, or the early filamentous algae, looking like delicate threads spun from starlight. These are the earliest visible hints of cells deciding to hold hands, to begin that grand, colonial dance. They are the quiet ancestors of the vibrant, complex life we see all around us today, a testament to the power of coming together. Think of a single musician, immensely talented, perhaps but limited in the breadth of sound they can produce. Their solo is beautiful, yes, but it's a single voice. Then, imagine that musician joining an orchestra. Each instrument, each player has a specific role, a unique timbre and range. And together, through precise coordination and shared intent, they create a symphony far richer, far more resonant, far more emotionally powerful than any solo performance could ever hope to be. That's the magic of multicellularity. These emerging multicellular forms were still wonderfully simple, of course. They were the early drafts of a magnificent story. But they had taken that crucial first step. What were the environmental pressures, the subtle nudges from the world around them, that truly drove them towards more complex, differentiated body plans? What made them want to become more than just a cluster, but something truly integrated, truly one? Feel the subtle shift from individual existence to communal purpose, the first gentle steps towards organized life. Suddenly the fossil record ignites. A period of unprecedented, rapid diversification of animal life, like a carefully guarded secret finally revealed. It's as if the deep, quiet slumber of the Precambrian oceans, where life was mostly simple, microbial, or perhaps soft and ephemeral, was abruptly broken by a symphony of creation. Imagine those ancient seas, vast and still, holding their breath for eons. Then, in what feels like the blink of an eye to geological time, they burst forth with an astonishing array of new forms. The conditions in the Cambrian period seem to conspire to unlock this potential. Perhaps it was the gentle rise in atmospheric oxygen, like a slow, steady breath filling the lungs of the planet, allowing for more complex metabolisms. Or maybe it was the availability of new minerals, dissolving into the water, providing the building blocks for shells and skeletons. There might have been crucial genetic innovations too, like discovering a new language that suddenly allowed for intricate thought and expression. Whatever the catalysts, the result was a profound blossoming of life. And what emerged from this Cambrian springtime? It was the appearance of most of the major animal phyla we recognize today. Think of it as the sudden invention of entirely new blueprints for life. Before this, things were simpler, less defined. But in the Cambrian, we see the widespread adoption of bilateral symmetry, that familiar head to tail, left to right organization that most animals, including ourselves, share. We also see the advent of a segmentation, where the body is divided into repeating units, like a train car linked to the next, allowing for greater flexibility and specialization. And then there were the specialized organ systems, the beginnings of guts, nervous systems, circulatory systems, all tucked neatly within these new, complex bodies. It was like life discovered how to build with Lijos, creating intricate structures from basic, repeatable parts. This explosion of new forms wasn't just about novelty, it was also a fierce competition, a dynamic dance of survival. The emergence of these complex, mobile creatures inevitably led to the rise of predators. And with predators came the desperate, ingenious need for the defense. It's a classic evolutionary arms race, a back and forth of innovation. Those who could move faster, see better, or hide more effectively had an advantage, but even more striking was the development of physical defenses. Suddenly, creatures were sprouting shells, like tiny mobile fortresses. Others developed sharp spines, turning themselves into unappetizing pincushions, and the senses themselves became more acute. Complex eyes began to appear, allowing creatures to scan their surroundings for both prey and danger. It was a world where being seen could mean being eaten, and where the ability to perceive the world in intricate detail became a matter of life and death. And who were these pioneers of the Cambrian seas? We have the iconic trilobites, those ancient, segmented arthropods that scuttled across the seafloor like armored, multi-legged jewels. Then there's the truly bizarre and fascinating Anomalocaris, a giant predator of its time, with its grasping claws and circular mouth, a creature that looks like it stepped right out of a surrealist painting. We also see the early forms of arthropods, the ancestors of insects, spiders, and crustaceans, already showing that characteristic segmented body and jointed limbs. These were creatures with entirely new ways of moving, feeding, and interacting with their environment. Their forms were so novel, so different from what came before, that they seemed to whisper tales of entirely new possibilities for life's architecture. Imagine a quiet library, filled with plain scrolls. Then suddenly, the shelves are overflowing with richly illustrated books, each telling a unique and vibrant story, filled with intricate details and bold narratives. The Cambrian explosion was that moment for life on Earth. The Cambrian gifted us with incredible diversity, but most of this life was confined to the oceans. What force would draw life onto the land? The land, once barren and stark, began to feel the gentle touch of life, a slow invasion by pioneers of green. It's a story that unfolds not with a roar, but with a whisper, a subtle shift in the planet's ancient hum. Imagine it, if you will, a world still largely dominated by the vast, shimmering oceans, with continents that were, for the most part, silent, dusty, and utterly exposed. The air, though present, held little of the life, giving moisture we take for granted now, and the sun, that same benevolent star, beat down with an intensity that would scorch anything unprepared. This was the stage set for a monumental gamble, a daring leap from the familiar cradle of the sea onto the untamed frontier of the soil. And what a frontier it was! Life, in its nascent stages, was intimately tied to water. It was the universal solvent, the medium for chemical reactions, the very essence of being. To leave it was to face a gauntlet of formidable challenges. The first, and perhaps most relentless, was desiccation. The sun's rays, so vital for energy, were also a constant threat, eager to steal away precious water. Then there was the sheer indignity of gravity. In the buoyant embrace of the ocean, support was a given. But on land, every cell, every nascent structure, had to contend with the relentless pull downwards, needing to build its own scaffolding. Reproduction, too, was a puzzle. The elegant dance of fertilization in water, where gametes could simply drift together, was no longer an option, and lurking above, invisible but potent, was the vile ultraviolet radiation from the sun, a harsh cosmic glare that could damage delicate genetic material. These were not minor inconveniences, these were fundamental obstacles, requiring entirely new ways of being. Yet, life, in its infinite ingenuity, began to find its footing. The very first terrestrial pioneers weren't the towering trees we might imagine, but humble, low-lying beings. Think of the bryophytes, the mosses and liverworts. They were the true adventurers, clinging close to the damp earth, their bodies a living sponge, designed to soak up and retain every precious drop of moisture. They didn't have the complex internal plumbing we see today, but they possessed rudimentary vascular tissues, tiny channels that allowed for a slow, careful movement of water and nutrients. They were the first to experience the sensation of roots, however simple, anchoring them to something other than the seafloor. They were the quiet artists, painting the first tentative strokes of green onto the canvas of the barren land. But to truly conquer the land, a more robust system was needed, and that system arrived with the development of vascular plants. This was a game changer, a biological revolution. Imagine the evolution of xylem and phloem. These are the plant's internal highways, its sophisticated plumbing system. Xylem became the dedicated water carriers, drawing moisture up from the soil, defying gravity with silent determination. Phloem became the distribution network for sugars, the energy produced by photosynthesis, carrying it to all parts of the plant. This internal transport system was the key that unlocked the potential for greater height, for more complex structures, for reaching further towards the sun. Suddenly, plants could grow taller, spread wider, and begin to truly reshape the landscape. And in this grand unfolding, we can't forget the unsung heroes, the often overlooked partners in this terrestrial conquest, the fungi. Long before plants had their own sophisticated root systems, they formed a crucial, ancient alliance with fungi. These fungi, with their intricate networks of hyphae, acted as an extension of the plant's own roots, delving deep into the soil, unlocking vital minerals and nutrients that the plants themselves couldn't access. In return, the plants offered the fungi sugars, the fruits of their photosynthetic labor. It was a perfect symbiosis, a partnership born of necessity, that allowed both to thrive in this new, challenging environment. These fungal networks were the hidden scaffolding, the invisible hand that helped lift early life from the soil. Picture a vast, silent desert. Then a single, persistent seed finds a tiny crevice, sprouts, and slowly, painstakingly, the desert begins to bloom, transforming the landscape grain by grain. It's a process that speaks to the deep resilience of life, its unwavering drive to find a way, to adapt, to overcome. These early plants, in their quiet persistence, were not just surviving, they were creating. They were building soil, stabilizing the land, and fundamentally altering the atmosphere. They were the architects of a new world, laying the groundwork for everything that would follow. These plants created new habitats. But what about the animals? What were the first brave creatures to venture from the sea onto the soil? It's a question that tickles the edges of our imagination. A glimpse into the next chapter of this incredible, ongoing story. Feel the dry earth beneath your feet, and imagine the first tender roots pushing through, a quiet act of conquest. As plants carpeted the land, the world teemed with new opportunities, drawing life from the water's embrace. And so, my dear friends, as the green blush of vegetation began to spread across the nascent continents, the great oceans, those ancient cradles of life, started to feel a gentle tug, a whisper of possibility reaching out from the shore. It was a time of profound transition, a slow, deliberate unfolding of what it means to step out. You see some of those remarkable lobe-finned fish, the ones with those wonderfully fleshy, sturdy fins, began to experiment. These fins, unlike the delicate, rayed fins of their more aquatic cousins, were built with a kind of internal bone structure, a hint of a limb, really. Imagine them, these pioneers, nudging their way through the shallows, their fins acting like sturdy little stilts, allowing them to prop themselves up, to push off the muddy bottom. It was a tentative, almost clumsy dance, a first foray onto a stage they were only just beginning to understand. These were the very seeds of what would become the amphibians, creatures poised on the cusp of a new existence, their fins slowly, painstakingly, morphing into the sturdy limbs that would one day carry them onto dry land. These early amphibian ancestors, like the wonderfully named Ichthyostega and Acanthostega, were truly fascinating creatures. They were like living bridges, beautifully suspended between two worlds. Picture them, if you will, as semi-aquatic beings, their lives still intimately tethered to the water. They'd venture onto land, perhaps to bask in the dappled sunlight, or to escape the crowded waters, but their skin, still moist and delicate, was a constant reminder of their watery origins. They were vulnerable to the drying kiss of the sun, and so, they always stayed close to the life, giving dampness of ponds, rivers, and marshlands. Reproduction, too, remained firmly rooted in the aquatic realm. Their eggs, lacking the protective shell that would later evolve, needed to be laid in water to prevent them from shriveling and dying. They were the first tentative explorers of the terrestrial frontier, but the land for them was still a place to visit, not yet a permanent home. Meanwhile, a different kind of invasion was underway, a silent, scuttling tide that began to colonize the land with a different kind of resilience. The arthropods, the ancestors of our insects, spiders, and myriapods, were making their grand entrance. Imagine the sheer ingenuity of their design. They developed exoskeletons, hard, protective outer shells made of chitin. Think of it as a suit of armor, providing not only structural support in the absence of buoyant water, but also an incredible defense against desiccation, that relentless drying out that threatened so many other forms of life. These exoskeletons were like miniature, self-contained worlds, allowing these creatures to venture further and further from the water's edge, to burrow into the soil, to climb the burgeoning plant life, and to explore the vast, newly opened terrestrial spaces. And what a world it was they were exploring! This era, particularly the Carboniferous period, was characterized by these immense, swampy forests. Imagine towering, ancient ferns that dwarfed anything we see today, their fronds unfurling like vast, green sails. Giant horsetails, their segmented stems reaching for the sky, created dense, humid environments. These were the nurseries of the land, and they were teeming with life. The air itself would have been thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying vegetation, alive with the rustling and scuttling of countless arthropods. These vast, waterlogged forests, over millions of years, would eventually become the very coal deposits that fuel our modern world, a testament to the incredible productivity and the sheer volume of life that flourished in these ancient, swampy realms. Think of this period as a grand opening for a new world. The land is the venue, plants are the decorators, and the first amphibians and arthropods are the eager guests, exploring every new corner, testing the boundaries of this exciting new space. These early land dwellers were fascinating, but their dependence on water remained. What evolutionary leap allowed creatures to break free from the watery realm entirely? The land offered freedom, but it demanded independence from water. The solution arrived in a surprisingly simple, yet revolutionary, package: the amniotic egg. Imagine, if you will, a creature venturing away from the damp embrace of ponds and rivers. The air, so liberating, also held a silent, insidious threat of desiccation. The very breath of life could become the breath of death, if a creature's delicate eggs were left exposed to the sun's relentless gaze, or the dry whisper of the wind. For so long, life's most vulnerable stage was tethered to water, a cradle that could easily turn into a tomb. But then, a marvel of evolutionary engineering, a tiny, self-contained world, began to appear. This was the amniotic egg. It wasn't just a shell, it was a meticulously crafted vessel, a miniature biosphere. Inside, cradled within a fluid-filled sac called the amnion, the developing embryo floated, protected from shock and drying out. Think of it as a personal, portable pond, a cozy watery nursery that could be carried anywhere. Then there was the chorion, an outer membrane that helped with gas exchange, letting oxygen in and carbon dioxide out like tiny, invisible lungs breathing the ambient air. And the lyolanthus, another clever membrane, served as a sort of internal waste disposal system, collecting the embryo's metabolic byproducts, keeping the precious little world clean. All of this, encased in a protective shell, often leathery or calcified, a barrier against the harshness of the outside world, yet permeable enough for life's essential exchanges. It was a complete package, a triumph of biological innovation. This remarkable egg was the key that unlocked the terrestrial realm. Suddenly, the ancient amphibians, still bound to watery breeding grounds, found themselves outpaced. Reptiles with their newly liberated offspring could now venture far from the water's edge, exploring vast, sun-drenched landscapes that were previously inaccessible. They could burrow into the soil, climb trees, and roam across plains, their future generations safely tucked away in these portable, protected cradles. This independence from aquatic reproduction allowed them to colonize drier inland environments, to spread their wings, or rather, their scales, across continents. They weren't just surviving on land, they were thriving, filling ecological niches that the amphibians, with their continued dependence on moisture, could not. And what creatures emerged from these pioneering eggs? The early reptiles were a diverse bunch, often small and lizard-like, but they were the ancestors of a lineage that would eventually conquer the planet. They were the first true land dwellers in a profound sense, their very biology shouting their independence. From these humble beginnings, a staggering array of forms evolved. Some became swift hunters, their movements a blur of scaled efficiency. Others developed protective armor, turning themselves into living fortresses. They diversified, adapting to forests, deserts, and even early swampy regions, each new form a testament to the versatility of their fundamental design, all thanks to that revolutionary egg. This gradual colonization and diversification set the stage for a new era, a time that would come to be known as the Permian period. It was a period of dramatic change, a slow burn leading to a fiery climax. As the continents coalesced into the supercontinent Pangaea, the climate shifted. Vast inland deserts expanded, and the world became a drier, harsher place. For the amphibians, this was a crisis, a slow fading. But for the reptiles, those masters of the amniotic egg, it was an opportunity. They were already adapted to drier conditions, and as the environment became more challenging, their resilience shone through. They began to dominate, their numbers swelling, their forms growing ever more varied. They were the undisputed rulers of the land, a reptilian reign that was just beginning to cast its long shadow, preparing the world for the giants that would one day walk it. This egg is like a tiny, portable pond, a self-contained world that a creature can carry with it, allowing life to bloom even in the driest of soils, a miniature ark for a new generation. With the land conquered by reptiles, what giants would rise to dominate the planet, shaping its landscapes for millions of years? Picture the ancient earth, baked by the sun, and a reptilian form carefully burying its precious, shelled future. Then came the thunderous footsteps, the reign of creatures so colossal, their presence still echoes in our imagination. We're stepping now into the Mesozoic era, a time that feels almost like a fever dream, a chapter where the very shape of life was sculpted by giants. For over 180 million years, these magnificent beings, the dinosaurs, were the undisputed rulers of our planet. It wasn't just a fleeting moment, it was an age of dominance, a vast, sprawling empire built on scales and roars. Think of the sheer diversity that bloomed during the Jurassic and Cretaceous periods. From the tiniest bird-like creatures flitting through ancient ferns, to the behemoths that dwarfed even the largest trees, dinosaurs occupied every conceivable niche. They adapted to arid deserts, lush rainforests, and vast open plains. Their diet spanned the spectrum, from the most delicate leaves to the flesh of their own kind. It's a testament to their evolutionary success, a symphony of adaptation played out across continents. They weren't just big, they were incredibly successful, a truly global phenomenon. And within this grand tapestry of reptilian life, a particularly fascinating lineage began to emerge. We're talking about the theropods, the two-legged predators, the ones whose very name whispers of beast foot. These were the agile hunters, the swift runners, the sharp-clawed beings that stalked through the ancient forests. And here's where things get truly remarkable, because this is the lineage that ultimately leads to us, or rather, to our feathered friends the birds. Creatures like the velociraptor, with its intelligent eyes and wickedly curved sickle claw, were part of this evolutionary journey. And then, of course, there was the undisputed king, the Tyrannosaurus rex. Imagine its sheer power, its bone-crushing bite, its presence that would have made the very ground beneath your feet tremble. The theropods represent a remarkable story of a predatory perfection and a surprising feathered future. But the Mesozoic wasn't just about the hunters, it was also about the gentle giants, the sauropods. These were the colossal herbivores, the long-necked titans that seemed to stretch their necks towards the heavens. Think of the Brachiosaurus, its head held high, browsing on the highest branches of ancient cycads, or the Diplodocus, its whip-like tail trailing behind it, a living, breathing mountain of flesh and bone. Their sheer scale is almost incomprehensible. How did they support such immense weight? Their adaptations were incredible, from specialized digestive systems to process vast amounts of plant matter, to likely social behaviors that helped them navigate their world. They were living, breathing ecosystems, their passing leaving behind trails of crushed vegetation and imprinted earth. Their existence is a profound reminder of their magnificence of scale in the natural world, and to truly appreciate the breadth of reptilian dominance during this era, we must also look beyond the land. The skies weren't empty, they were ruled by the pterosaurs, the winged reptiles. These weren't dinosaurs, but close relatives, and they soared on leathery wings, some with impressive wingspans, catching thermals and hunting fish. And beneath the waves, the oceans teemed with their own reptilian rulers, these marine reptiles. Creatures like the Zalagichthyosaurs, with their dolphin-like bodies, or the formidable Mosaurus, a true apex predator of the ancient seas, showcasing that reptilian success wasn't confined to just one environment. It was a total environmental takeover, a testament to their remarkable adaptability across air, land, and sea. Imagine the Mesozoic world as a grand, ancient theater, where colossal, scaly actors played out epic dramas across vast, primeval stages, their roars and footsteps echoing for epochs. It's a stage set with towering ferns and volcanic landscapes, where the air itself might have hummed with the buzz of giant insects and the distant calls of these magnificent beasts. Their reign was magnificent, but it ended abruptly. What cosmic event, or series of events, led to their dramatic departure? Close your eyes and feel the earth tremble with the passing of these magnificent, ancient beings. The age of giants ended, not with a whimper, but with a cataclysm. Yet from the ashes a new lineage previously in the shadows began its ascent. Imagine, if you will, a world painted in vibrant greens and teeming with colossal life. Dinosaurs, those magnificent, thunderous beings, ruled every continent, their footsteps echoing through epochs. But then, the sky itself became a harbinger of change. We're talking about the KPG extinction event, a cosmic hammer blow that reshaped our planet. The prevailing theory, and a rather dramatic one at that, points to an asteroid, a celestial boulder the size of a mountain, crashing into what is now Mexico. The impact was unimaginably violent, a flash brighter than 1,000 suns, unleashing tsunamis that dwarfed anything we can conceive, and sending shockwaves of fire and dust around the globe. The skies darkened, choked with debris, blocking out the life-giving sun for months, perhaps even years. It was a global winter, a suffocating blanket of ash and darkness. And while that asteroid is the star of the show, we can't entirely forget the Earth's own internal rumblings. Massive volcanic eruptions, particularly in the Deccan Traps of India, were also spewing out vast quantities of gases and ash, adding their own layer of environmental stress to an already beleaguered planet. It was a 1-2 punch of planetary proportions, a devastating 1-2 punch that brought the reign of the dinosaurs to an abrupt, fiery, and final end. Now amidst this grand, terrifying finale there were others. Smaller, quieter creatures, often overlooked, scurrying in the undergrowth, hidden in the shadows of these reptilian titans. These were the early mammals. And what made them so special, so resilient, in the face of such overwhelming disaster? Well, a few key traits, really. Firstly, their small size. They were like little furry mice, often no bigger than a shrew or a rat. This meant they needed less food, making them less vulnerable when resources became scarce. Think of it as a much smaller fuel tank, easier to keep topped up. Then there were their nocturnal habits. While the dinosaurs basked in the sun, these early mammals were busy at night. When the world was cooler and the dominant predators were asleep, they were the night shift of the Mesozoic, quietly going about their business. And crucially, they were endothermic, meaning they were warm-blooded. They could generate their own body heat, unlike the cold-blooded reptiles. This gave them a significant advantage in fluctuating temperatures, especially during the long, cold nights or the extended periods of darkness after the impact. Their diets were also incredibly diverse. They weren't picky eaters. They munched on insects, seeds, roots, even small invertebrates. This adaptability in their diet meant they could find sustenance even when the usual food sources vanished. These were the quiet survivors, the ones who could hunker down, wait out the storm, and emerge when the dust finally began to settle, and settle it did. With the colossal dinosaurs gone, the stage was cleared. The intricate tapestry of life, so dominated by these magnificent reptiles, was suddenly ripped apart, leaving vast, gaping holes. It was like a grand orchestra where the lead violinists suddenly dropped their bows. The ecological niches, those specific roles and places within an ecosystem, were now empty. And into these vacant spaces stepped our small, furry survivors. Mammals, with their newfound freedom and the absence of their ancient predators, began to rapidly diversify. They started to explore, to experiment, to fill those roles. Some evolved to be faster, to chase down prey in the open plains. Others became burrowers, digging complex tunnels beneath the earth. Some developed the ability to climb trees, to reach for the fruits and insects hidden amongst the branches. It was an explosion of mammalian forms, a Cambrian explosion of fur and teeth and mammary glands. They were no longer just the little things in the shadows, they were becoming the new architects of the biosphere, filling every conceivable corner of the living world, from the deepest oceans to the highest mountains. And what a fascinating array of early forms they were. We're not talking about lions and tigers and bears just yet, oh no. These were still relatively simple creatures, but their potential was immense. There were the multituberculates, a group that existed for an astonishingly long time, with teeth that had multiple cusps like tiny prehistoric grinders. They were incredibly successful, surviving for over 100 million years, a testament to their robust design. Then there were the earliest marsupials, the pouch bearers, though their pouches might have been a bit more rudimentary back then, perhaps just a fold of skin. And of course, the beginnings of the placentals, the group that would eventually give rise to most of the mammals we know today, including us. These early placentals were likely small, insectivorous creatures, but their reproductive strategy, with a placenta providing nourishment to the developing fetus, offered significant advantages. It was a time of incredible experimentation in mammalian evolution, a prelude to the incredible diversity that would define the Cenozoic era. Think of a vast forest fire. While it devastates the dominant trees, those towering giants that have stood for centuries, it also clears the undergrowth. It burns away the dense, tangled mess, allowing smaller, more resilient saplings, those often overlooked and shaded plants, to finally reach for the sunlight and grow into a new, vibrant forest. These early mammals were survivors, yes, but they were still relatively simple. What grand environmental shifts? What incredible evolutionary pressures would drive the development of more complex mammalian brains, of more sophisticated behaviors, of the very consciousness that allows us to ponder these stories today? As the Earth's climate began to shift, cooling and drying, vast new ecosystems emerged, reshaping the very fabric of life. It's a story whispered on the wind, a subtle transformation that painted the world in hues of gold and green, stretching as far as the eye could see. We're stepping now into a time when the planet itself seemed to exhale a cooler breath. Imagine, if you will, the lingering warmth of the Mesozoic era slowly, gradually, beginning to recede. It wasn't a sudden dramatic chill, no, but a slow, gentle turning of the Earth's thermostat. The great, humid forests, teeming with ancient life, began to thin. The air grew drier, and with that dryness, a new kind of landscape started to unfurl. Think of it like a vast, ancient tapestry, the dense, interwoven threads of forest slowly unraveling, revealing the bare, sun-drenched earth beneath. This cooling and drying trend, stretching across millions of years, was the quiet architect of a revolution, paving the way for the birth of savannas, and eventually, the sweeping, boundless grasslands. And the star of this new act, it was quite simply assgrass. Humble, resilient, and incredibly adaptable. Before this era, grasses were more like shy wildflowers, clinging to the edges, not yet the dominant force they would become. But as the climate shifted, as the rains became less frequent, and the sun beat down with a more insistent warmth, grasses found their niche. They learned to spread their roots deep into the soil, anchoring themselves against the winds. They developed ingenious ways to survive drought, to sprout anew after fires had swept through. And in doing so, they began to carpet the earth, creating these vast, open plains, these rolling seas of green and gold. It was a quiet revolution, a silent conquest, as grass, in its myriad forms, began to define the very contours of the land. Now, with this new buffet spread out across the continents, life had to adapt. And adapt it did, with a breathtaking display of evolutionary ingenuity. Consider the herbivorous, the plant eaters. The old browsers, those who feasted on leaves and twigs in the forests, found themselves in a world that was rapidly changing. But then came the grazers. Their teeth, once suited for tearing soft leaves, began to evolve into sturdy, flat surfaces, perfect for grinding the tough, fibrous blades of grass. Their digestive systems, once relatively simple, became longer, more complex, equipped with specialized microbes to break down cellulose. And for protection in these wide open spaces, where there was nowhere to hide, Herd behavior became a vital strategy. Imagine vast herds, a moving tapestry of life, their numbers providing safety, their constant vigilance a shield against danger. And where there are grazers, there must be predators. The stealthy stalkers of the forests found the open plains a different kind of challenge. Hiding was harder, the prey was faster, and the distances were greater. So, the predators too began to change. Speed became paramount. Think of the ancestors of the cheetah, honing their incredible bursts of acceleration, their bodies streamlined for pure velocity, senses sharpened, two eyes that could spot movement from miles away, ears that could pick out the faintest rustle of grass. And in many cases, cooperative hunting emerged. Packs, working together, coordinating their movements, using strategy to outmaneuver their swift prey. It was a dynamic dance of survival, played out on the grand stage of the newly formed grasslands. It's like looking at a familiar room, say a cozy library, and then imagining it slowly transforming into a vast, open meadow. The creatures who thrived amongst the bookshelves, the quiet readers, the scribes, they'd need to find new ways to exist. Perhaps learning to navigate by the stars, or to find shelter from the sun. But those who were already drawn to the open spaces, the ones who enjoyed the breeze and the sense of freedom, they would flourish. The grasslands offered a new kind of freedom, a new kind of challenge, and a new kind of life. These evolving grasslands provided a new stage for life. What momentous evolutionary journey would soon begin on these vast, open landscapes? Picture the wind sweeping across ancient savannas, carrying the scent of new life and the distant calls of evolving creatures. It's a powerful image, isn't it? A world being reshaped not by cataclysm, but by the gentle, persistent hum of change, by the slow, steady beat of evolution. On these changing African landscapes, a familiar primate began a slow, deliberate transformation, one that would redefine its destiny. And as the ancient trees began to whisper goodbye, giving way to wide, sun-drenched savannas, a certain kind of primate, one we might recognize in the shadowy branches of our own family tree, started to shift. They began to stand. This wasn't a sudden leap, you see, but a slow, unfolding grace, a gradual resculpting of bone and sinew. We're talking about the Australopithecines, those early pioneers, names like Australopithecus afarensis echoing through the dust of ages. Think of Lucy, that famous, fragile skeleton, her bones telling a story of a creature still at home in the woodlands, but increasingly drawn to the open plains. Her pelvis, a little wider, her leg bones angled just so, hinting at a new way of moving. They were like seedlings pushing through the soil, finding their balance, their roots reaching deeper into this new, sunlit world. Now, why this grand decision to rise? The reasons are as layered as the earth itself. Imagine the advantage of freeing your hands. No longer tethered to the branches, these newly liberated appendages could cradle precious infants, carry gathered fruits, or perhaps, just perhaps, begin to shape the world with simple tools. And then there's the sun, that great, golden eye in the sky. Standing tall, these early hominins could expose less of their surface area to its relentless gaze, a subtle yet vital form of thermoregulation. Like a slow, moving cloud drifting across the savanna, they could travel further, their energy conserved, their eyes scanning the horizon for both sustenance and safety. It was a more efficient stride, a more expansive view of their unfolding world. The evidence for this remarkable transition is scattered like precious jewels across the African continent. Fossil sites, bathed in the same ancient sunlight, reveal these incremental changes. Footprints, preserved in volcanic ash, like those found at Latoli, offer a silent, eloquent testament to a moment in time, showing us the unmistakable impression of feet walking upright. Each fossil, each fragment of bone, is a whisper from the past, a piece of a grand, unfolding mosaic. We see the subtle shifts in the spine, the reshaping of the skull, the gradual elongation of the legs. It's a story told not in grand pronouncements, but in the quiet language of a geology in bone, a slow, deliberate evolution etched in stone. And as they navigated these changing landscapes, their diets, too, began to transform. The lush fruits of the forest gave way to the more varied offerings of the savanna. They became as opportunists, their senses attuned to the rustle of leaves, the scent of ripening berries, the promise of a scavenged meal. This wasn't just about survival, it was about exploration. Their diets broadened, becoming a tapestry of roots, seeds, insects, and eventually, the flesh of animals. This dietary flexibility, this willingness to adapt and explore new flavors, was as crucial as their upright posture, a testament to their growing ingenuity. Think of a creature accustomed to moving through a dense forest canopy, its world a dappled mosaic of light and shadow. As the trees thin and the world opens into wide, grassy plains, it must learn to navigate the open ground. Its posture changes, its gaze lifts towards the horizon, its senses recalibrating to this new, expansive reality. It's a profound shift, a redefinition of how it interacts with its environment. Bipedalism was a key step, a monumental shift in their journey. But what further innovations would allow these early humans to truly master their environment? Feel the strength in your own legs, the balance of your upright posture, and connect with this ancient evolutionary heritage, this silent, powerful story of becoming. As the hands became freed from locomotion, they began to grasp, to manipulate, to transform the world around them. Think of it, really. For so long our ancestors were bound to the earth, their limbs dedicated to the rhythm of walking, of climbing, of simply being in the landscape. But then, a subtle shift, a loosening of the reins, and those hands, those marvelous intricate instruments, were suddenly available. Available for more. It's quite a story, the evolution of our hands. Imagine them, not yet the finely tuned instruments they are today, but something more basic, more robust. Yet even then, the crucial element was there, the dar's opposable thumb. That little digit, capable of meeting the others, was a quiet revolution. It allowed for a precision grip, the ability to hold something delicately, to feel its texture, its weight, its very essence. And beneath the skin, a symphony of muscles and tendons, millions of years in the making, each one contributing to the astonishing dexterity we often take for granted. It's like a miniature orchestra, playing a silent concerto of movement. And what did these newly liberated hands do? They reached out, and they found stones. Not just any stones, but stones that could be shaped. The Oldowan tool industry, a name that whispers of ancient beginnings, speaks of choppers, of flakes of simple, yet profound tools. Imagine Homo habilis, handyman, holding a rounded river cobble, striking it with another, coaxing a sharp edge from its stony heart. These weren't weapons of war, not yet. They were instruments for survival, for butchery, for scraping hides, for digging for roots. They were the first whispers of our ingenuity, the first tangible evidence of our will to change our environment. This act of making tools, it wasn't just a physical endeavor, it was a cognitive leap. To choose the right stone, to understand how to strike it, to anticipate the fracture, to refine the edge, all of this demanded planning, foresight, and that delicate dance of fine motor control. The brain, in turn, responded. Those areas dedicated to motor planning, to sensory feedback, to spatial reasoning, they began to stretch, to grow, to become more intricate. It's a beautiful feedback loop, isn't it? The hand shapes the tool, and the tool in turn shapes the hand and the mind that wields it. And these tools, these simple extensions of our will, they amplified our capabilities in ways we can barely fathom. They were like new senses, new muscles, new ways of interacting with the world. Suddenly, accessing the nutrient-rich marrow within bones became possible. Tough plant materials could be processed. The world, once a place of passive observation, became a canvas for our action. Tools were not just objects, they were extensions of the body, allowing us to reach further, to grasp tighter, to survive more effectively. Imagine a painter's brush. It's an extension of the artist's will, allowing them to translate inner vision into tangible form. So too, early tools were extensions of early humans' desire to interact with and shape their world. These tools were simple, but they were a beginning. What happened when the brain itself began to truly expand, unlocking new levels of cognitive power? With more advanced tools and a more robust physique, a new species emerged, pushing the boundaries of hominin migration and innovation. And so, the story whispers onward, to a time when our ancient ancestors began to truly expand. We're talking about Homo erectus, a name that simply means bright human. And oh, what an upright stride they had. Imagine them, if you will, standing taller, their frames more like our own, less stooped, more purposeful. Their brains, while still smaller than ours, were a significant leap forward, growing larger, more complex, allowing for new ways of thinking, new ways of being. They were the first of our kind to truly venture out, to step beyond the familiar warmth of Africa, to feel the bite of new winds on their faces and see landscapes painted in hues they'd never known. Their legs, longer and more efficient, became instruments of exploration, carrying them across vast plains and over rolling hills, a testament to a growing mastery of their physical world. But perhaps the most transformative discovery, the one that truly ignited the human journey, was the taming of fire. Think of it, this primal force, this wild, dancing spirit of heat and light. To control it, to wield it, must have been an awe-inspiring moment. Fire became a second sun, captured by early humans. It provided warmth against the biting cold of unfamiliar nights, a soft, flickering glow pushing back the suffocating darkness. It was a shield, a protector against the prowling shadows and the creatures that lurked within them. And then there was the food. Fire didn't just cook, it transformed. Raw sustenance, tough and challenging, became tender, digestible, unlocking a treasure trove of calories, a richer fuel for those growing brains and ever more active bodies. This ability to cook, to unlock more energy from their meals, was a fundamental shift, a quiet revolution that rippled through their very being, allowing for further growth and development. And alongside this mastery of fire, we see a parallel evolution in their hands, in their minds. The tools they crafted became more refined, more elegant. We see the emergence of the Acheulean hand axe, a symmetrical teardrop-shaped masterpiece. It wasn't just a tool for chopping or scraping, it was an object of foresight, of planning. To create such a tool, one had to envision its purpose, to understand the properties of the stone, to carefully chip away, shaping it with intention. It's a tangible whisper of abstract thought, a physical manifestation of a mind that could imagine, and then execute with a growing sense of artistry and purpose. This wasn't just about survival, it was about innovation, about leaving a mark of intelligence on the raw materials of the world. This combination of a more capable body, a burgeoning mind, and the transformative power of fire allowed the Homo erectus to undertake truly epic journeys. Their dispersal out of Africa wasn't just a migration, it was a colonization of the planet. They ventured into Asia, into Europe, adapting to a breathtaking array of environments, from steaming jungles to windswept steppes. Imagine them encountering vast, unknown territories, their fires burning brightly against the alien sky, their tools in hand, their curiosity their compass. They were the pioneers, the ones who first tested the limits of our ancestral home, proving that our species, in its nascent forms, was capable of far more than anyone could have predicted. They were a success, a testament to the relentless, whispering momentum of evolution. Homo erectus was a success, but the evolutionary path continued. What subtle changes would lead to the emergence of our own species? And then, a new blueprint emerged, a species defined not just by its tools, but by its capacity for abstract thought, for language, for art. Imagine for a moment the slow, patient unfolding of a bud, not a sudden burst, but a gradual unfurling, petal by delicate petal. That's how our story felt for so long. But then something shifted. A subtle, yet profound, transformation began to take shape within the very architecture of our ancestors. We're talking about Homo sapiens, the wise ones, the thinkers. Anatomically, they started to look familiar. Their skulls, once more elongated, began to round out, becoming more globular like a smooth, polished stone cradled in the palm. This wasn't just a change in shape, it was a rearrangement. A new housing for a brain that was beginning to hum with a different kind of energy. Their skeletons, too, became more graceful, less robust, hinting at a different way of moving through the world. And then there's that small, yet significant, feature, the chin. A little protrusion, a subtle signal of a developing vocal apparatus, capable of shaping sounds into something far more complex than mere grunts or calls. It's as if nature, in its infinite wisdom, decided to sculpt a new vessel, one perfectly suited for the intricate dance of thought and communication. This anatomical shift was mirrored by an even more astonishing internal revolution, the cognitive revolution. It was as if a switch was flicked, opening up vast new landscapes of the mind. Suddenly, our ancestors weren't just reacting to the world, they were interpreting it. They developed the capacity for symbolic thought, the ability to assign meaning to things that weren't physically present. Think of a simple pebble, once just a rock, now perhaps representing a memory, a promise, or even a deity. This led to the explosion of complex language. Imagine the sheer wonder of being able to share not just immediate needs, but abstract ideas, stories, hopes, and fears. This language became the glue that bound communities together, enabling unprecedented levels of cooperation and innovation. They could plan hunts with intricate strategies, share knowledge across generations, and build societies based on shared understanding. It was the dawn of social cognition, the ability to understand and predict the thoughts and feelings of others, weaving a rich tapestry of social connection. Now, where did this new blueprint come from? The prevailing scientific thought, like a river carving its path, points towards an origin in Africa. The out of Africa model suggests that Homo sapiens emerged from this continent, much like a seed carried on the wind, and then spread outwards, populating the rest of the globe. This wasn't a quiet migration, it was a grand adventure. As they moved, they encountered other hominin species, like the robust and fascinating Neanderthals. Imagine these encounters a meeting of different minds, different ways of being. Were there exchanges of knowledge, of culture, or perhaps competition? The genetic evidence tells us there was intermingling, a blending of ancient lineages, a testament to the interconnectedness of our past. This dispersal wasn't just about finding new territories, it was about adapting, about becoming part of the very fabric of every landscape, from the searing deserts to the frozen tundras. And as they spread, they began to leave whispers of their inner lives, echoes of their burgeoning consciousness. We find evidence of early symbolic behavior, not just functional tools, but objects imbued with meaning. Think of the delicate beads fashioned from shells, the ochre pigments used to adorn bodies or cave walls, the careful arrangements of stones. And then there are the burials. The deliberate placement of bodies, sometimes accompanied by grave goods, suggests a profound understanding of life, death, and perhaps even an afterlife. These weren't just biological beings anymore, they were beings with a rich inner life, capable of creating art, beauty, and rituals that spoke to something deeper within them. They were developing a sense of self, a connection to the past, and a vision for the future. If earlier hominins were master builders using simple tools, Homo sapiens became the architects and artists. They not only built shelters but conceived of beauty, meaning, and the stories that bind us. Our species spread across the globe, adapting to every conceivable environment. What were the consequences of this global expansion? Contemplate the profound depth of human consciousness, the silent revolution that continues within each of us. The hunter-gatherer lifestyle, which had sustained humanity for millennia, began to give way to a new, more sedentary existence. It's like the earth itself whispered a new song, and we, finally, began to hum along. For so long we were like leaves on the wind, carried by the currents of seasons and the movements of the herds. But then, something shifted. A quiet revolution, not of thunder and lightning, but of patient observation and gentle coaxing. This was the dawn of agriculture, the moment we started to settle down. Imagine, if you will, the subtle magic of the Neolithic transition. It wasn't a sudden, dramatic event, but more like the slow unfurling of a fern frond, a gradual awakening. Across different corners of our planet, in places like the Fertile Crescent, the Yellow River Valley, and Mesoamerica, humans began to notice the patterns. They saw how seeds dropped from their hands could sprout into life, how certain animals, with a little care, might stay close. This wasn't about conquering nature, but about understanding its rhythms, about becoming partners with the soil and the seed. It was a profound shift, a gentle redirection of our ancient nomadic dance into something more rooted, more deliberate. We started to cultivate, to nurture, to invite the wild bounty closer. And oh, the consequences of this new way of life. Suddenly we weren't constantly on the move, our lives dictated by the migration of a deer or the ripening of berries. We began to build permanent homes, our shelters becoming more substantial, more enduring. This sedentary existence allowed for something remarkable: population growth. With a more reliable food source, more children could survive, thrive, and grow. And with more hands, more food could be produced, leading to a surplus. This surplus, like a gentle tide, began to reshape our societies. It freed up some individuals from the constant search for sustenance, allowing them to explore other passions, to become specialists. Imagine a potter whose hands, no longer solely focused on gathering, could now shape clay into vessels with exquisite care, or a weaver whose fingers could now create intricate patterns from plant fibers. But this new abundance also brought shadows. Diseases, once dispersed by our wandering ways, could now spread more easily within settled communities, and as some accumulated more resources, the first whispers of social stratification began to echo, creating hierarchies where before there was a more fluid equality. The land itself, once a vast, untamed expanse we traversed, was now being shaped, tilled, and sometimes sadly depleted. The very essence of life around us began to change too, through the quiet miracle of domestication. Think of wheat, once a wild grass with scattered grains, now plump and abundant, its seeds clinging to the stalk waiting to be harvested. Or rice, its watery fields meticulously tended. And the animals, cattle, their wild ancestors fierce and untamed, now offered their milk, their meat, their strength for the plow. Dogs, once fellow hunters, became companions, guardians of our homes. This wasn't just about convenience, it was a fundamental alteration of biology, a co-evolutionary dance where humans and other species reshaped each other over countless generations. We selected for traits that suited our needs: docility, higher yield, predictable behavior, and in doing so, we fundamentally changed the very nature of these plants and animals, and in turn, our relationship with the living world. And from these cultivated fields and tended herds, the seeds of civilization began to sprout. Agriculture provided the stable foundation, the reliable nourishment that allowed communities to grow beyond mere hamlets. Villages blossomed into towns, and towns, with their increasing complexity and organization, eventually grew into the first cities. These settled communities, supported by the surplus of the land, became centers of innovation, of trade, of governance. They were the crucibles whereas complex societies began to form, with their own laws, their own beliefs, their own monumental structures. It was a profound transformation, a testament to our growing ability to not just survive, but to actively shape our world, to build something enduring from the earth beneath our feet. Imagine a nomadic tribe, always following the herds and seasons, their lives a tapestry woven from the ephemeral gifts of nature. The agricultural revolution was like them planting roots, building permanent homes, and cultivating their own gardens, transforming their relationship with the earth from one of fleeting encounters to one of deep, abiding connection. This new way of life brought unprecedented changes. What were the long-term impacts of these human-driven modifications on the very ecosystems we inhabited? Consider the deep, slow shift in human history, the moment we began to truly shape the land, rather than simply move across it. It's a story whispered in the soil, in the very DNA of the plants and animals that now share our world. With civilizations established, humanity's drive for innovation accelerated, leading to the harnessing of new, powerful energy sources. Imagine, if you will, a world where the rhythm of life was dictated by the sun, the wind, and the strength of muscle. For millennia, our ancestors lived in a delicate dance with nature's ebb and flow. But then, something truly remarkable began to stir. It was a shift, a profound awakening of human ingenuity, a collective breath drawn in anticipation of change. This era, the Industrial Revolution, was like a giant, slumbering titan finally stretching its limbs, ready to reshape the very landscape of our existence. At its heart was a revolutionary invention, a symphony of metal and fire: the steam engine. Think of it as a heart of iron, pumping with the force of boiling water, its rhythmic pulse echoing through factories and across continents. Suddenly, the limits of human and animal power were shattered. We could lift heavier loads, weave finer threads, and churn out goods at a pace that would have seemed utterly miraculous just a generation before. This wasn't just about making more things, it was about redefining what was possible. The clatter of looms, the hiss of pistons, the rumble of new machines, these sounds became the soundtrack to a world awakening to its own amplified potential. Productivity soared, not in small incremental steps, but in great, bounding leaps, transforming workshops into vast industrial cathedrals. And what fueled this colossal awakening? The answer lay deep within the earth, in the dark, compressed sunlight of ages past: fossil fuels. Coal in particular became the black gold of this new era, its combustion a controlled explosion that unleashed unimaginable energy. It was like tapping into ancient reservoirs of power, a concentrated essence of life from eons ago, now harnessed to drive our modern endeavors. Later, oil and natural gas would join the chorus, each offering its own potent contribution to this insatiable hunger for energy. These fuels were the lifeblood of the revolution, pumping through the veins of industry, powering the trains that crisscrossed the land and the ships that sailed the seas. The sheer abundance of energy they provided was intoxicating, allowing for feats of engineering and production on a scale never before conceived. It was a potent elixir, promising progress and prosperity, a seemingly limitless wellspring from which to draw. This surge of mechanical might and readily available energy didn't just change how we made things, it fundamentally altered where and how we lived. The countryside, with its quiet fields and familiar rhythms, began to empty as people were drawn to the magnetic pull of the burgeoning cities. Imagine a river, its waters slowly gathering momentum, then suddenly cascading over a precipice. That's what happened to populations. Millions left their ancestral homes, seeking work and opportunity in the smoky, bustling metropolises that were rapidly growing like mushrooms after a rain. This urbanization was a seismic shift, creating new social structures, new economic realities, and new challenges. Life in these industrial centers was a stark contrast to rural existence, a cacophony of noise, a kaleidoscope of faces, a constant hum of activity. It was a crucible where old ways of life were tested and transformed, forging new identities and new communities in the fires of industry. But this era of unprecedented power and progress also marked the beginning of something far more subtle, yet profoundly significant: our impact on the Earth's delicate systems. As we dug deeper into the ground for coal and oil, as we built our factories and fueled our machines, we began to alter the very air we breathed and the landscapes we inhabited. The smoke billowing from countless chimneys, carrying with it the byproducts of combustion, began to drift, unseen at first, then more noticeably, changing the composition of the atmosphere. The forests, once vast and untamed, were cleared to make way for mines and factories, their ancient whispers replaced by the roar of machinery. This wasn't just local change anymore, it was the dawn of a global transformation, a subtle reshaping of our planet on a scale that was truly unprecedented in human history. Think of the Industrial Revolution as a giant turning a switch, unleashing a torrent of power. It allowed for incredible feats of engineering and production, but also created new, complex challenges for the planet. This surge of technological advancement brought humanity great power, but at what cost to the delicate balance of nature? Feel the subtle hum of modern machinery, the invisible currents of energy that power our world, and consider their origins. We are now living in an era where human activity has become a dominant force, shaping the planet's geology and ecosystems. It's a thought that settles in the quiet moments, like a pebble dropped into a still pond, sending ripples outward. We've been talking about evolution, this slow, patient unfolding of life over eons. But what if I told you that we are now the sculptors, the architects of a new chapter, so profound it might be etched into the very bedrock of our planet? Scientists are proposing a new geological epoch, a name for this time we inhabit, the Anthropocene. It's a word that sounds almost like a whisper from the future, acknowledging that our presence, our very existence, has become a geological force. Think about it, the sheer scale of our impact. From the invisible threads of climate change to the very tangible scars on our landscapes, we're leaving a mark. It's a concept that shifts our perspective, doesn't it? From being passengers on this earth to becoming, in a way, its active participants, for better or for worse. And when we speak of the Anthropocene, one of the most significant whispers is that of climate change. For centuries, we've been burning, digging, and industrially churning, releasing gases that form a sort of invisible blanket around our planet. This blanket, woven from carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases, traps the sun's warmth, like a cozy sweater on a chilly day, but perhaps a sweater that's become a little too tight. We see its effects in the rising of the oceans, the subtle, and not so subtle, shifts in weather patterns, the way summers seem to linger longer, or storms gather with a new ferocity. It's a planetary fever, a gentle warming that's reordering the very rhythm of our world, from the migration of birds to the blooming of flowers. It's a testament to how deeply our actions, are intertwined with the Earth's delicate balance. Then there's the quiet tragedy of the biodiversity crisis. Imagine a vast library filled with countless volumes, each one a unique story of life, meticulously crafted over millions of years. Now, imagine pages being ripped out, not one by one, but in great, sweeping gusts. That's what's happening to our planet's biodiversity. Species are vanishing at a rate that's unprecedented, a silent exodus from the stage of life. This isn't just about losing a few familiar creatures, it's about the unraveling of intricate ecosystems, the loss of genetic information, the silencing of evolutionary narratives. Habitat destruction, the relentless spread of our cities and farms, the insidious creep of pollution, and the warming climate are all contributing to this great fading, leaving behind a less vibrant, less resilient world. And what are the tangible whispers of our presence? They're everywhere, if you know where to look. Think of the human footprint, the indelible marks we're leaving behind. Our cities are vast geological formations of concrete and steel, reshaping river systems, altering coastlines. And then there are the plastics, those persistent molecules that will likely outlast us by millennia, swirling in our oceans, embedded in our soils, even found in the air we breathe. Our atmospheric composition itself is changing, a subtle but significant alteration of the very air that sustains us. It's like leaving fingerprints on everything we touch, but on a planetary scale. Fingerprints that will be read by geologists of the distant future. Imagine a gentle gardener tending a vast estate for millennia. The gardener, over countless seasons, has nurtured the soil, pruned the branches, and allowed the natural beauty to flourish. Then suddenly, a powerful, rapid landscaper arrives not with gentle hands, but with immense force, reshaping the terrain with bulldozers and heavy machinery. This landscaper creates both marvels, grand boulevards, intricate water features, and also unintended consequences, like compacted soil, altered drainage, and the displacement of existing flora and fauna. That's a little like the shift from the slow, patient work of natural geological processes to the rapid, transformative power of human activity. We are that landscaper, and the consequences, both beautiful and concerning, are unfolding around us. We are now aware of our immense impact. What does this awareness mean for our future, and for the future of evolution itself? It's a profound question, isn't it? It invites us to consider our role not just as inhabitants, but as custodians, as active participants in the ongoing story of life. Take a deep breath and consider your place in this vast, interconnected planetary system, your role in the Anthropocene. Evolution is not a relic of the past. It is an ongoing process, and life is responding, adapting to the world we have shaped. It's a quiet revolution happening beneath our notice, a constant whisper of change in the grand symphony of existence. Think about the tiny, persistent armies of bacteria. When we unleash our most potent antibiotics, we're not just fighting an infection, we're holding a microscopic evolutionary trial by fire. And just as a blacksmith's hammer shapes stubborn metal, these pressures select for those few, exceptionally lucky or exceptionally clever bacteria that possess a tiny spark of resistance. Over time that spark ignites, and we see entire populations shift, their defenses hardening against our best efforts. It's a stark reminder that even the smallest life forms are engaged in a dynamic dance with their environment, a dance we've profoundly influenced. And it's not just bacteria. Consider the humble insect, the persistent pest in our fields. We spray our fields with pesticides, a chemical tide meant to sweep them away. Yet, again, evolution's subtle hand is at work. Some insects, by sheer chance, might have a slightly different metabolism, a tiny quirk that allows them to process or tolerate the poison. These survivors, these resilient few, go on to reproduce, passing on their fortunate traits. Soon, the pesticide that was once a death sentence becomes merely a mild inconvenience, a testament to the relentless power of natural selection, even against our most advanced interventions. Even in the heart of our bustling cities, where concrete and steel dominate the landscape, life finds a way to adapt. Think of the pigeons, their iridescent necks catching the dim city light. They've learned to navigate the complex aerial highways of our buildings, their calls echoing in the canyons of glass and metal. Or the foxes, once creatures of deep woods, now trotting through our parks with a knowing glint in their eyes, their senses tuned to the rhythms of urban life. the scent of discarded food, the subtle shift of traffic lights. They're not just surviving, they're thriving in the world we've built, a testament to life's astonishing capacity to mold itself to new circumstances. But it's not just about reacting to the world, we are also, quite consciously, guiding evolution. Think of the dogs by your side, or the crops in our fields. For millennia, we've been selecting for traits we find desirable. We've bred the sleek greyhound for speed, the sturdy bulldog for strength, the fluffy poodle for companionship. This isn't random chance. It's vast intentional selection, a deliberate shaping of the evolutionary trajectory of other species. And now, with the advent of genetic modification, we're wielding this power with even greater precision, directly altering the very building blocks of life to suit our needs, our desires, our vision of a better world. It's a profound responsibility, this ability to sculpt the future of life itself. And this brings us to this pace of change. The environmental shifts we're instigating, the warming of the planet, the alteration of habitats, the introduction of novel chemicals, these aren't gentle nudges. For many species, they are seismic jolts, demanding an evolutionary response at a speed rarely seen in Earth's long history. It's like asking a slow-moving glacier to suddenly become a cheetah. Some species, those with shorter lifespans and larger populations, like the bacteria and insects we've discussed, can adapt relatively quickly. Their generations flip by in mere days or weeks, allowing new traits to emerge and spread with remarkable swiftness. But for others, for the ancient trees or the slow, reproducing whales, the pressure to adapt is immense, and the time available is frighteningly short. This is where we encounter the limitations of evolution. While life is remarkably resilient, it's not an infinitely elastic rubber band. When the environmental changes are too rapid, too widespread, too extreme, even the most adaptable species can find themselves outpaced. Imagine a chameleon trying to blend into a canvas that's being repainted with blinding speed, its colors shifting faster than the chameleon can possibly react. That's the challenge many species face today. Their evolutionary toolkit, honed over owns for slower, more gradual changes, is struggling to keep up with the whirlwind of human-induced disruption. The very forces that drive adaptation can, when amplified by our actions, become overwhelming. Look around you, at the plants in your home, the birds outside your window, and consider the silent, ongoing adaptations they are making. They are participating in a grand, unfolding story, a narrative of change written in the very fabric of life. We see evolution happening around us. But what about within our own species? How is human evolution continuing in this modern era? It's a question that lingers, a gentle echo in the quiet spaces of our understanding. While dramatic physical changes take millennia, subtle evolutionary pressures continue to sculpt the human story. It's like watching a vast, ancient forest. You don't see the trees growing taller overnight, but you notice the subtle shifts, a new sapling reaching for sunlight, a fallen branch creating a clearing, the slow, persistent work of moss and lichen. Our own evolution, especially in recent times, is much the same. It's a whispered story, not a roaring epic. Consider for a moment lactase persistency. This is the rather elegant ability found in many of us to continue digesting lactose, the sugar in milk, long after infancy. For most of human history, this wasn't the case. We were like baby birds, needing milk only for a short, precious time. But then, somewhere along the winding path of our past, as humans began to domesticate animals and drink their milk, a remarkable genetic change occurred. It was a tiny tweak, a single letter changed in our DNA, but it unlocked a new world of nutrition. Suddenly, milk wasn't just for babies, it became a sustained source of goodness for adults, a rich, creamy fuel that could carry communities through lean times. It's a testament to how our environment, our choices, can nudge our very blueprint. And then there's the silent, constant dance with disease resistancy. Imagine our bodies as intricate gardens and pathogens as persistent weeds. Evolution, in its gentle, persistent way, has been breeding stronger, more resilient plants. Think of the sickle cell trait, for example. While carrying 2 copies of the gene can cause sickle cell anemia, having just 1 copy offers a surprising shield against malaria. It's a delicate balance, a trade-off, where a slight vulnerability in one area grants a significant advantage in another. We've also seen adaptations emerge in response to viruses like HIV, with certain genetic variations providing a natural albeit partial defense. These are the quiet victories, the subtle fortresses built within our cells. Our dietary adaptations also tell a fascinating tale. Our bodies are, in a way, living records of what we've eaten over vast stretches of time. Genetic influences shape how we process fats, how efficiently we break down carbohydrates. Think about how some people can enjoy a rich, fatty meal without much fuss, while others might feel the effects more keenly. These differences often stem from the diets of our ancestors, the particular foods that were abundant or scarce in their particular corners of the world. It's as if our genes carry the faint echoes of ancient feasts and famines, guiding our body's responses even today. But perhaps the most profound shift, the most dynamic force shaping us now, is the role of culture. This is where our story takes a truly fascinating turn, moving beyond the purely biological. Our cultural practices, our technological marvels, are now powerful evolutionary drivers. Think about medicine, for instance. It intervenes in the natural selection process, allowing individuals who might not have survived in the past to live and reproduce. Similarly, practices like contraception can influence reproductive rates and patterns, subtly altering the pressures that guide our species. Our culture isn't just something we do, it's something that is, in turn, shaping us in ways we're only beginning to understand. Imagine a river flowing through a landscape. While the river's course is largely set by ancient geology, subtle changes in the banks, new obstacles, and the flow itself are constantly being shaped by the water's passage. Our evolution is like that river, its course influenced by deep, ancient forces, but continuously being refined by the currents of our present lives. We've seen how life adapts to environments. But what about the environments we create? How does technology influence our evolutionary path? It's a question that opens up a whole new vista of wonder. Consider your own ancestry, your family's history, and the subtle genetic legacies that have been passed down through generations. What whispers of adaptation do you carry within? As our technological prowess grows, we find ourselves not just subject to evolution, but increasingly capable of directing it. It's a thought that settles in the quiet corners of the mind, like dust motes dancing in a sunbeam, hinting at a grand, unfolding narrative. We've spent so long as mere passengers on the grand river of life, carried along by the gentle, relentless currents of natural selection. But now, it feels as though we're beginning to build our own vessels, perhaps even learning to steer. Consider for a moment the incredible dance of our genes. For millennia, these tiny, intricate scrolls of information have been copied, shuffled, and occasionally delightfully mutated, shaping the tapestry of life. But now, with tools like CRISPR, we're learning to read those scrolls, and more astonishingly, to edit them. Imagine the potential, like a meticulous gardener pruning a rose bush, carefully snipping away imperfections, or perhaps adding a new vibrant hue. We could, in theory, correct genetic predispositions to disease or even, some whisper, enhance certain traits. It's a power that hums with both profound promise and a deeply unsettling weight, asking us to consider what constitutes in home perfection, and who gets to decide. Then there's the fascinating convergence of our minds and machines. We're moving beyond mere tools, we're talking about VR's augmentation. Think of it like adding new senses, or sharpening existing ones to an exquisite degree. Artificial intelligence, like an invisible, ever-present assistant, could weave itself into the fabric of our thought processes, expanding our cognitive reach. Cybernetic implants, sleek and almost invisible, might offer us the strength of titans or the precision of a surgeon's scalpel. Brain-computer interfaces, like delicate tendrils reaching out from our consciousness, could allow us to communicate with the digital world, or even with each other, in ways we can barely comprehend. It's as if we're crafting extensions of ourselves, reaching further into the unknown. And it's not just about direct intervention. Our choices are becoming powerful selective forces. The medicines we develop, the reproductive technologies we embrace, even the way we manage our environment, these are all subtly, and sometimes not so subtly, nudging the course of evolution. When we cure a disease that once would have culled a population, we're altering the selective pressures. When we choose partners or use genetic screening, we're making conscious decisions about the genetic legacy we pass on. It's a quiet, pervasive influence, like the slow, steady erosion of a mountain by wind and rain, but driven by our own conscious will. This brings us to the heart of a profound philosophical shift. As we gain the ability to tinker with our own biology, to enhance our minds, and to consciously influence our genetic future, the very definition of human begins to shimmer and reform. What does it mean to be human when we can fundamentally alter our own blueprint? Are we still the same species if we've augmented ourselves with silicon and code? It's like standing at a crossroads, where the path behind us is familiar, etched by millions of years of natural unfolding, and the path ahead is a luminous, uncharted territory shaped by our own hands. The lines are blurring, becoming as soft and indistinct as a watercolor painting left out in the dew. We are moving from being passengers on the river of evolution to becoming its conscious engineers. We hold the blueprints, but we must also understand the immense power and responsibility that comes with them. It's like being handed the keys to a magnificent, ancient engine, capable of both creation and, if we're not careful, a terrible unmaking. This is a profound moment for humanity. But as we contemplate our own future, what lessons can we glean from the vast, patient story of evolution that came before us? Ponder the incredible trajectory of human ingenuity and its potential to shape not just our world, but our very being. Beyond the scientific mechanisms, evolution offers a profound philosophical perspective, a testament to the power of enduring patience. Consider, for a moment, the sheer scale of time that evolution operates upon. We humans, with our fleeting lives, measure time in heartbeats and seasons in the gentle turning of years. But evolution speaks in the deep, resonant hum of oons. Imagine a single grain of sand, then another and another, until you have a mountain range, then a continent, then a whole planet covered in sand. That's closer to the temporal canvas evolution paints upon. It's a timescale so vast it becomes almost abstract, a river of existence flowing so slowly that its currents are imperceptible to our immediate senses. It's the patient whisper of ages, the slow unfurling of a cosmic fern, a process so unhurried it makes our own anxieties about waiting seem like mere ripples on a vast ocean. We are born, we live, we fade, all within the blink of an eye, geologically speaking. Evolution, on the other hand, is the slow, deliberate shaping of existence itself, a sculptor working with the very fabric of reality, with no deadline in sight. And through all this immense expanse, life exhibits a remarkable resilience and persistence. Think of the extremophiles, those tenacious little beings thriving in the searing heat of volcanic vents or the crushing darkness of the deep sea. They are living testaments to life's stubborn refusal to yield, its inherent drive to simply find a way. Even after cataclysmic events, like the asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs, life didn't just disappear. It clung on, burrowed deep, waited for the dust to settle, and then, with quiet determination, began to bloom again. It's a persistent, almost defiant spark that flickers through the ages, a gentle but unyielding force that pushes upwards, outwards, and always, always onwards. It's the quiet hum of life's engine, a melody played on the strings of existence, never truly silenced. This grand narrative of life's unfolding is also a celebration of beauty and incrementalism. We often crave dramatic leaps, sudden transformations. But evolution's artistry lies in the subtle, the small, the cumulative. Imagine a single, almost imperceptible shift in a molecule, a tiny advantage in a changing environment. Over countless generations, these tiny adjustments, like a river carving a canyon, sculpt breathtaking complexity. The iridescent shimmer of a butterfly's wing, the intricate dance of a hummingbird's flight, the sheer, mind-boggling diversity of life on Earth, all are the result of a million tiny, patient steps. It's the elegance of a perfectly formed snowflake, built layer by patient layer, or the slow, deliberate growth of a mighty oak from a tiny acorn. Each change, however small, is a brushstroke on the canvas of life, contributing to a masterpiece that continues to evolve. And at the heart of it all is a profound interconnectedness. Every species, every adaptation, is a thread in an immense, intricate tapestry. The ancient bacteria that first harnessed sunlight are linked to the towering redwoods of today. The smallest insect plays a role in the grand symphony of pollination. We, too, are part of this vast, interwoven network, our own existence a consequence of the millions of years of patient unfolding that came before us. We are linked to the past, influencing the future, a single note in a cosmic chord that resonates through time. This interconnectedness reminds us that no life exists in isolation. We are all part of a grand, unfolding story, each playing our unique, albeit often quiet part. Evolution is like an ancient sculptor working with an immense block of marble. It takes countless patient strokes, subtle adjustments, and vast amounts of time to reveal the masterpiece hidden within. We are part of that masterpiece. This patient, persistent force has shaped all life. What does this grand narrative teach us about our own place and purpose in the universe? Allow yourself to feel the deep, slow pulse of geological time, the quiet rhythm of life's persistent unfolding. As evolution progressed, a new phenomenon began to emerge from the complex interactions of life consciousness, awareness, and the search for meaning. Consider the humble beginnings, the simple twitch of a single-celled organism sensing a gradient of light, a whisper of warmth. Over vast stretches of time, these faint stirrings coalesced. Nervous systems, like delicate tendrils reaching out into the world, began to weave themselves into existence. From simple nerve nets to more centralized ganglia, and eventually, to the astonishingly intricate architecture of the vertebrate brain, each step was an unfolding of complexity. Think of it like a tiny spark, initially flickering in the darkness, gradually gathering fuel, growing brighter, more focused, until it could illuminate not just the immediate surroundings, but the very nature of existence itself. This journey, etched in the very structure of our being, allowed for more than just reactive responses. It paved the way for thought, for memory, for the wondrous capacity to reflect upon the world. And then, the great mystery. How does the seemingly inert stuff of the universe, the atoms and molecules, the electrochemical whispers within our skulls, give rise to the vibrant, subjective landscape of experiency? How does the redness of a sunset feel, or the melancholy of a forgotten melody resonate within us? This is the enigma of consciousness, the hard problem that continues to beckon us. It's like trying to understand how the intricate dance of a thousand musicians, each playing their part perfectly, can somehow conjure the feeling of a symphony, the emotional weight that lifts us or brings us to our knees. We are, in a sense, the universe experiencing itself, a breathtaking emergence from the fundamental fabric of reality. This newfound awareness, this capacity to feel and to know, inevitably led to a profound yearning. Why are we here? What is the point of this intricate dance? Consciousness, it seems, is intrinsically linked to the search for meaning. We look up at the stars, not just as distant points of light, but as invitations to understand our place in the grand cosmic narrative. We connect with each other, seeking solace, understanding, and a shared purpose. It's as if the universe, having awakened within us, now asks itself the very questions that have haunted philosophers and poets for millennia. We're driven to create, to love, to leave a mark, to find a story that makes sense of the breathtaking chaos and beauty we perceive. And perhaps that's the ultimate beauty of it all. Evolution isn't just a sterile biological process, it's a grand, unfolding narrative. We are not merely passengers on this journey, we are also its authors, its interpreters, and its most ardent admirers. From the first stirrings of life to the complex symphony of human thought, there's a story being written, a pattern emerging from the seemingly random, and we, with our conscious minds, are the ones capable of theirs reading that story, of finding its threads, its motifs, its profound and often surprising resolutions. We are the universe's way of looking back at itself, of marveling at its own creation. Imagine a vast, intricate tapestry woven over ions. At first it's simple threads, a muted palette, then patterns emerge, colors deepen, and finally a vibrant, self-aware observer arises within the tapestry, capable of appreciating its own creation, its own intricate design. We have journeyed through time, from the simplest beginnings to the complexities of consciousness. As we approach the end of our exploration, what final thoughts can we carry with us? Gently touch your forehead, feel the seat of your own consciousness, and marvel at its evolutionary origins. Our story of patient evolution, from the first whisper of life to the dawn of consciousness, is a testament to enduring possibility. The journey is far from over. We've traced this incredible, unfolding tapestry, haven't we? From the simplest of single cells, those tiny, self-contained universes, to the breathtaking complexity of multicellular life, where cells learn to cooperate, to specialize, to become something more. Remember the oceans, teeming with nascent forms, the gentle sway of primordial algae. Then, the daring leap onto land, a world of dry air and bright sunlight, a completely new frontier. We saw the ferns unfurl, the first tentative roots grip in the soil, the slow, deliberate march of life out of the water's embrace. And then the astonishing diversification. The rustle of leaves, the buzz of insects, the silent glide of ancient reptiles. Each era a new chapter, written in bone and scale and feather, a symphony of adaptation, and within this grand orchestra, a particular melody began to emerge, a subtle shift in the rhythm. The primate lineage with its grasping hands and curious eyes, its increasing reliance on shared experience, and us, humans. We, who learned to shape the world with our minds as much as our hands, who built fires and forged tools, who began to look at the stars and ask why. We've touched upon our profound impact, the way our presence has reshaped landscapes, altered ecosystems, a powerful, sometimes overwhelming force. But through it all, that persistent thread of continuity, that is unyielding drive to adapt, to find a way. Think of evolution as a vast, ancient river. It has carved canyons, nourished forests, and sustained countless beings. We are but a single, dynamic eddy within its immense flow, carrying the momentum of all that has come before. As we prepare to conclude this gentle exploration, I invite you to hold on to the quiet wonder of this journey. What echoes of these ancient whispers will you carry with you? Feel the connection to all life, past, present, and future, as we transition into our closing reflections. It's a profound thought, isn't it? This idea that we are not separate from the grand narrative, but an integral part of it, a living, breathing continuation. The very molecules that make up your being have, in some distant epoch, been part of stardust, part of ancient oceans, part of the very soil that first supported life. It's a humbling, and yet, strangely empowering realization. We carry the legacy of billions of years within us, the accumulated wisdom of countless generations of successful adaptation. And as we stand here, at this unique moment in time, with our capacity for foresight and our intricate understanding of the world around us, the whispers of the future begin to grow a little louder, don't they? We've talked about the incredible resilience of life, its ability to find a way even in the most challenging circumstances. Think of those deep sea vents, where life thrives in the absence of sunlight, fueled by chemical energy. Or the extremophiles, bacteria that can survive in boiling water or frozen ice. This inherent tenacity, this stubborn insistence on existing, is a fundamental characteristic of the evolutionary process. It's not a directed march towards some predetermined goal, but rather a branching, exploratory dance, a constant testing of possibilities. And now, with our burgeoning understanding of genetics, of synthetic biology, of artificial intelligence, we find ourselves at a new threshold. We're not just passive participants in evolution anymore, we're becoming active architects. This is a responsibility, of course, a weighty one. But it's also a source of immense wonder. Imagine the possibilities, the new forms of life we might cultivate, the ways we might heal our planet, the new understandings we might unlock about ourselves and the universe. It's like standing on the edge of a vast, unexplored continent, with only the faintest of maps. The whispers, you see, they're not just echoes of the past, they are also the nascent murmurs of what's to come. They speak of potential, of innovation, of a future shaped by our choices, our curiosity, and our capacity for compassion. It's a future where we might explore the stars, not just with our machines, but perhaps, in ways we can't yet fully comprehend, with ourselves. It's a future where we might mend the damage we've caused, fostering a deeper harmony with the natural world. It's a future where we might unlock even greater depths of consciousness, understanding our place in the cosmos with a clarity we've only dreamed of. The journey of evolution is a testament to the power of gradual change, of best persistent effort, and of the infinite potential inherent in existence. And as we continue on this path, let us do so with a sense of reverence, with a deep appreciation for the incredible legacy we carry, and with an open heart to the unfolding wonders of the future. The whispers are still there, gentle and inviting, guiding us towards what might be. We have traced a path through unimaginable time, from the spark of self, replication in the primordial soup, to the complex tapestry of life that graces our planet today. We've witnessed the silent power of oxygen, the ingenious partnerships of endosymbiosis, the explosive diversity of the Cambrian, and the slow, deliberate ascent of life onto land. We've walked with the giants of the Mesozoic, felt the quiet resilience of mammals, and embarked on the remarkable journey of our own hominin ancestors, culminating in the consciousness that allows us to ponder it all. It is a story of patience, of adaptation, and of an unending, quiet persistence. The story of patient evolution is a profound meditation on time, resilience, and interconnectedness. It teaches us that change, even the most dramatic, is often the result of countless small, persistent steps. It reminds us that life, in its myriad forms, is a continuous experiment, a testament to the power of adaptation. It encourages us to embrace the slow, unfolding nature of existence, to find beauty in the incremental, and to recognize our own place within this grand, ancient lineage. Perhaps, in understanding this vast history, we find a deeper appreciation for the quiet strength within ourselves and the world around us. Take your time with this thought. As our journey draws to a close, I invite you to share your reflections. What part of this vast evolutionary story resonated most deeply with you? Did any particular adaptation or period capture your imagination? Your thoughts and insights enrich this space for us all. Please feel free to share them in the comments below. Your presence and participation are truly valued. Now, as the whispers of evolution gently fade, allow yourself to drift. Let the vastness of time and the quiet persistence of life lull you into a peaceful slumber. May your dreams be filled with the wonder of becoming, the gentle rhythm of adaptation, and the profound peace of deep rest. Until we meet again on another softly spoken journey, sleep well,